Hey there, it's Robin, and you're listening to Healthy Habits for a Healthier Home. I'm here to help you create a healthier life, one simple shift at a time. If you're a mama ready to ditch toxins, clean up your family's nutrition, and build daily habits that support your well-being, you're definitely in the right place. Each episode is packed not only with education, but practical tips and tools to help you transform your health and your home without that feeling of overwhelm. So let's take this journey together to create a thriving, low-tox home for you and your family. If you're ready, say, I am ready. Now let's get into this episode. Hey y'all, welcome back. I am so excited. We're actually having Dr. Christi Tompkins back on for the second time because we're just so aligned when I see her content when, there's so much going on in this perimenopause, menopause stages of life, but I really love her spin and take on things. And I think she has a lot of wisdom to share. So just a little bit about her. If you have not listened to her on the last episode, I will drop that into the show notes so that you can go back because we talk a lot about nutrition and the basics, but this is going to dive a little bit deeper. And then we're going to kind of transition into something that's actually really exciting and during this time. So she's been practicing for 18 years. She's a naturopathic medical doctor. She's grown her practice as more of a women's health and lifestyle medicine expert, supporting women in all stages, but she really does truly love that 40 to 60 range of people going through this, I will say, challenging but amazing new chapter of life. And it's going to be very different for everybody. So this is sort of what we're going to talk about, and I'm super excited. So thank you so much again for coming on. How are you today?
Hi, Robin. I'm excited to be here too. Yeah, thank you for inviting me back.
Yes, absolutely. So as you know, for those listening, and then I know that Dr. Christi also knows, I'm postmenopausal and I'm on a wild ride, just like most people that are in this midlife chapter. And I wanted to first just sort of dive into some of the differences between perimenopause and postmenopause, because I feel now that I've gone through one transition through the other and am now in that last forever phase, I definitely have noticed some differences. So I would love to get your take on that.
Yeah, so perimenopause, the word peri just means around, like perimeter. So it's basically it's a transition period of time, and that could be a year, that could be a few years, that could be 10 or 15 years. And what often happens for women is there are subtle changes in your menstrual cycle, and they may be so subtle that you don't even notice. Changes in your mood, changes maybe in how your body stores fat, changes in how you feel right before your period. So there's these subtle clues. Some women are very in tune with their body. I would say for a lot of women in their late 30s, at least when I was in my late 30s, I didn't think I was perimenopause. If you had said I was perimenopausal, I would have been like, no way, I'm not even close to being that M word, menopause. But what happens is it's typically biologically or chronologically based on your age, but also your symptoms too. And so for some women, they might start noticing changes late 30s, early 40s, definitely mid to late 40s. If you are a woman who's going to stop having a period around, let's say, age 50, that's about the average. And so for a lot of women, they're going to go through some changes. And that's okay, because that's a normal process leading up to menopause, when it completely stops for 12 months and it's not coming back. What's interesting though about perimenopause is you can have life interruptions like stress or a chronic illness or medication use or something unusual in your life that, number one, can either throw you into menopause or perimenopause sooner, or sometimes it can temporarily stop your period because of this stress or because of this circumstance. But that doesn't mean that your period isn't necessarily coming back. Something like maybe a thyroid condition where, let's say you have a thyroid that has gone undiagnosed or untreated, that can interrupt your cycle, and that could sometimes temporarily stop that. And it may come back. So For a lot of women, there's a lot of variability when it comes to the symptoms that you start having, and then when it finally stops. And I think that's the key here that I really want women to understand is that this this timeline of perimenopause may be just a few years, and those first few years you may not even realize you're in it until then you start to notice. You're like, oh, a little bit more belly fat, my period's heavier. My period's now 25 days instead of 28 to 30 days. I'm now starting to notice that I get kind of achy before my period when I never used to have that before. Or now I'm having these, I wrote about this recently. Now I'm having these rage episodes where I'm like screaming at everybody. And maybe that's not to say anger is a bad thing, but maybe that's not part of your personality. Maybe you're not somebody that's overly aggressive all the time at everybody. So these changes that happen, yes, they're normal, but it's also telling you kind of where you are sort of in the timeline of
So I
perimenopause.
want to stop you just for one second because, like, as you're going through these things, I think the biggest disservice to women ages 30 and up is that when you do have symptoms, let's say like where you're, I wouldn't even call it rage, but you just feel like edgy all the time, or you feel like you have times during the month where you feel more than that. If you went to the doctor, your regular doctor, because that's who we're told to go to at the beginning, right? Like, what is wrong with me? Why am I? I mean, the first thing that they go to is anxiety, depression, stress. It's like, what, no, at least in my experience, when I went and I was like, I think I might be in period. Like at this time, I was just dipping my, but I'm like, I think I might be. And they're like, well, you might be, you have to kind of move through it. That's not a good answer because if you are educated and you understand your body better, that's where I think there's a disconnect in education with women. And I think that's where improvement needs to really happen is we need to be taught these things. Because unless you're in that industry, you have no clue. And that's sad because it is our body, but honestly, we're just living life until boom, we hit something and then we're like, what is happening? But nobody says like because you have a thyroid condition, or maybe it is that, or there's just not enough preventative things happening prior to stepping into perimenopause that would make you think these could be perimenopause symptoms. And then when you go, if they even mention that it might be, it's sort of brushed off like, oh well, this is what you have to go through. Like you might feel that way. And yeah, that is true, but what can we do to support it? Like what are things, and I feel like if people understood their genetics better, right, and understood their DNA for different reasons, that would be helpful. But we don't even do baselines of anything. So I think we could do a better job, not you per se, but just in general, our healthcare system could do a better job at beginning to educate. Like you said, in your 30s, you're like, I'm nowhere near. And that's how I felt. But I was post menopause by the time I was 45.
Yeah.
That was insane. But when I was going through Peri, this is the advice I got from my gynecologist. Just, move through. And yes, it's going to be a little disruptive, but until you hit a wall, just keep, trying to live. And then when you hit the wall, we can kind of address some of the symptoms. Well, at that time, I was like, okay, sounds all right. I mean, sounds like she's not trying to like overprescribe things or tell me what to do or, and I was like, and I did make it through it. But when I hit that wall, man, I hit that wall. And I was like, wow, that was dumb. Like so stupid. Like I should have been supporting myself all along. And that's sort of the message I put out to anybody that will ask me is do the before work so that you're more empowered, you're set up for success when you do get to the post. Because the post has some beautiful things in it. That I mean, I've experienced some challenges, but I've also experienced some beautiful things. But I want to touch on just really quick. Dr. Christi put an email out. So if you're not on her email list, you should definitely join it. Check out her Instagram page, which all of that will be in the show notes. But she put out an email that was talking about the common, uncommon symptoms. And as I read through them, I was like, yep, 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 like all of these things. But at the beginning, I would never have thought that those were menopausal signs. And I did have someone say, maybe you have anxiety. I didn't have anxiety. I I was going through perimenopause and my hormones were all over the place. So I felt a little more anxious at different times in my life. But like you said, where stress comes in, it can also create a big chaotic thing as well. So Really quick, I want to just back up to where do you feel like genetics and then a quick talk on just HRT. How do you feel that those come into play to help people with symptoms, but as they try HRT, if things are not a fit, how would people know that?
Well, to go back to what you
Yep.
said a few moments ago about anxiety is a big buzzword right now, and it's thrown out so often. And
Hmm.
I think having an anxiety disorder is very different than
Yes.
feeling anxious or even
Yes.
feeling stressed, feeling overwhelmed, feeling like you're unable to cope. I really think that's what it is there's a lot of people who are unable to cope, men and women of all ages. And this word anxiety is thrown out like it's a badge of honor. And it's somewhat annoying, actually, because
I 100% agree.
there are people who legitimately have an anxiety disorder, and that's a completely different thing. And
100%.
what are the root causes of that? That's a whole other conversation for that person. When it comes to women, I mean, we do, if you're having a menstrual cycle, your body is going to go through this, rise and fall, ebb and flow of your hormone levels. And that can affect your brain health, your nervous system. It can definitely affect how you deal with stress, how you deal with things that are overwhelming, how you deal with difficult situations. And it might make you more tearful. It might make you more angry or have mood swings, and that's okay, because there are things that you can do, not just botanically or even bioidentical hormones, but even just like the mind body
Choices.
connection. There are ways that you can adapt to life. And so when it comes to helping perimenopause, you just said you stopped having a period at 45. I've been treating women now for about 18 years, and some women stop having a period in their 40s, sometimes even around the age of 40. And I think around the age of 40 is typically less common. That's actually more rare. And there's usually something else involved, maybe a catastrophic event, extreme trauma, maybe a thyroid condition, maybe there was a cancer diagnosis or something else where it just completely stopped. The average time is 40s to early 50s. And so again, to kind of back up to what you said about preparing yourself along the way, I happen to be in a profession that is about studying the human body and helping people understand their body, how it works, how it can function better physically, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. And I love this. So I do a lot of self-care. I talk about self-care with my clients. I'm also perimenopausal, and I will tell you that with all of the proactive, preventative self-care things that I do, I'm still blindsided by a lot of things that have happened to me, and I study this. That's what's so interesting, is that for women who don't study the human body, they are incredibly blindsided by, oh my God, I don't feel like myself anymore. I don't feel, why is my periods lasting 2.5 weeks now? And why have I gained 25 pounds in the last 12 to 15 months? So there's a lot of women that don't understand. They might know, yes, it's hormone changes. And maybe, of course, we've got social media and the internet, and they might listen to the latest podcast or listen to an audiobook, and they're going to hear about this and know it's probably related to their hormones shifting. But a lot of women don't understand that connection with hormones changing, but also the life stressors that are going to influence the severity of your cycle when you stop having a period, the quality of your menstrual cycle, and so forth. And so I really think the personalized approach is imperative when it comes to getting the right. And you can get the diagnosis to say, yes, you're perimenopausal. But if a woman comes to me and she's 45 or 43, she's definitely perimenopausal based on her age, but she may stop having a period at 55. And that's where talking to somebody like me who can really um, be a bit more discerning when it comes to her symptoms, run some appropriate lab testing, and kind of going to your question about does HRT work? It sometimes it really is about the woman, and sometimes a little bit works. Some women need a bit more. Some women don't need any hormones. And based on the work that I've done over so many years in helping women with a variety of treatments, I will say that it's not a one size fits all, and it never really should be. And for some women, it's a little bit of hormones, and it's really a lot about lifestyle medicine support and making sure she's eating clean and healthy and moving her body and finding out different ways to face the stress in her life. And so, I don't know it's so much about genetics because I do think some women who have certain genetic tendencies or variants, they might still do really exceptionally well in with HRT, or they might do exceptionally well with other types of treatments. So I think it's less about that, and it's more about the efficiency of how your body is functioning, your liver health, your reproductive system, your gut health, your nervous system, the strength of that gut brain connection and the brain ovarian connection, and also your adrenal glands too. So there's a lot to consider, and I know that was a big mouthful there, but there's a lot to consider when it comes to all the different body systems and what works for a female. And what works for you, let's say your period stops at 50, what works for you at 42 or 45 is going to be different than what works for you at 50. And so I think sometimes women, as they get closer to that point and even beyond, they tend to do a little bit better on maybe a higher dose of HRT. And maybe a higher dose of HRT at 43 or 44 is going to cause her to gain weight, or she's going to become estrogen dominant or irritable, or she might have more, breast tenderness and so forth, acne breakouts from too much testosterone. So it is that case by case basis, and it should be. And that's the beauty of this type of healthcare approach is it has to be individual and not just person to person, but who you were several years ago and who you're going to be in a few years, and what works for your body. And it has to keep evolving because you're evolving.
Yeah, and I love all of that. And I think also another key to this, for people who don't really know a lot about HRT, there's so many different ways to get it. It's not a one size fits all. What works for one might not work for another. And again, just through my experience, because I happen to be a unique case, is what I'm told by I'm now at my third practitioner. I'm just unique, and that's okay. But it's just challenging for people who haven't worked with challenging cases. So I'm kind of on the hunt for somebody who gets more challenging cases. But what I've learned that I think people need to be very aware of is that there's multiple different kinds of HRT, whether it's creams, patches, pellets, whatever. I mean, and even if you do compounding from compounding pharmacy to compound pharmacy, that even changes everything in my experience of how things are compounded and how they do it. And I don't know all the ins and outs of that. But again, if you aren't taught that, then you go and you think, oh, well, this is the only way to do things. And it's not. And so again, that's where the bioindividuality comes in, and knowing your body and knowing, like you said, you can become, estrogen dominant during certain times. But in traditional medicine, they don't really talk about those things. And your detox pathways, if they're not flowing properly, if they're not open, if your body's not functioning tip top, it's just like an engine. If it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing, when you throw oil in there, right? It's not going to do the right thing with the oil, and then your car is going to break. And it's the similar thing to a human. So again, I'm going through these challenging things, and I know that God has put me in this place so that I can learn and then advocate for the challenging people that have like odd things. But it's also just made me really shout that you have to be your own advocate. You have to not be afraid to ask the questions. But I really feel like when you're going through this process, the most important things are having those self-care practices, are having good mind-body connection, listening to what your body is actually saying, having breathing techniques, and I want to just touch really quick on the anxiety thing, because I think it is a word. I think some people really do have like anxiety disorder, and this is not who I'm speaking of, but then just people that have regular stressors in life that feel anxious. It's almost like we feel like we shouldn't have that. And so I tried to explain to my kids that you should, because when things are changing, when things are, whether you're getting a new job, you're graduating, from school, you're moving into a new place, a new situation, if you didn't have any, and I'm not calling it anxiety, if you didn't have any anxiousness, like if you didn't have butterflies in your stomach or worry or just that would be abnormal. To me, that would be something that you should be worried about if you're just so like even keeled that you just don't even like you should have waves of feelings. Like that's part of being human, right?
Yeah, change is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
change is so uncomfortable. And most people don't like change. We want to be in control of the change, but when change happens, it throws us off kilter. So
And
that's,
that's where we're going to dive right over to like the spirituality and really getting invested in yourself.
can we talk a little bit about the HRT piece? Because I
Yes,
want to,
absolutely.
and we'll get to the
Yeah, absolutely.
good stuff. When it comes to HRT, you're right. There are so many options and it's almost overwhelming, which is great. Again, finding the right HRT treatments that work for your body is key. And being able to talk to somebody who can say, this is what this is going to do for you. This is the pros and cons of this. This is the pros and cons of this. Going back to an article I wrote, or I think it was an article and a video I did on Instagram on HRT and how the estrogen patch and the progesterone capsule Prometrium is very commonly prescribed and it's very commonly given to women or recommended. And sometimes that can work really well. The patch twice a week, it's super convenient. It often will address hot flashes, night sweats, other mood swings. And with the Prometrium, the progesterone, it can either regulate your period-ish, or if you're postmenopausal and not cycling, it can help alleviate a lot of those symptoms. But for a lot of women, that doesn't work. It's either too much, it's too high of a dose, even if you lower the dose of the estrogen patch, which comes in different forms. Um, Progesterone in a capsule, you can get the compounded version in different milligram dosages if you go to a compounding pharmacy. If you just go to your mainstream retail pharmacy, it's 100 milligrams. You can get the generic, whatever, and that's often covered by insurance. And I think that's why it's prescribed, because it's standard of care. It's covered by insurance, and the woman's like, woohoo, I got it covered by insurance. But what happens is either she gains weight, it's not enough, it doesn't address the vaginal dryness, low libido, some of the other symptoms. And it begs the question, if you're having such severe adverse symptoms, what else is going on? Is it
Mhm.
stress? Is it your diet? Is it the glass of wine every night with dinner? Is it that you're in an unhappy marriage? Is it that you are caring for an aging parent? Is it what else is going on in your life? Are you scrolling your phone too much and you're sitting down and you're not as physically active? So there's a lot of factors to consider in HRT, and there's those prescriptions. There's compounded hormones that you can get through a cream form, a topical form. Where you apply it matters. Skin versus vaginally versus the face, the thin-skinned areas of your body. There's the liquid form. There's a troche, kind of like a dissolvable form in your mouth. There's the pellets, which is all the rage these days. The pellets can work well, or if you get too high of a dose, it's too high of a dose. And then you have to ride it out and you have to let it metabolize through your body. And it's either too much, and now you've got excess estrogen or excess testosterone, which is great because it can boost your libido, but it can also cause excess body hair and acne breakouts and aggression in women that is not healthy for your relationships. And the weight gain, of course, which most women are not happy about. So you have to be careful, making sure that you go to somebody who can talk to you about the pros and cons of hormones to find the one that's right for you. And you can get hormones over the counter these days. We know you can get over the counter progesterone that's been around for a while. I would caution that because sometimes that works well, sometimes It can either backfire and it's not the right form or the right dose for you, or it can lead to other symptoms, or it's not really addressing the root cause. You can get over-the-counter DHEA cream, and a capsule form as well. That also has side effects. And these days you can get over-the-counter estriol cream, which is a weaker form of estrogen. And you can also get over-the-counter estradiol now. So it's being discerning on using these and knowing why you're using them in the right form, in the right dose. And if you do get symptoms, that's where it becomes imperative to talk to somebody to say, okay, it sounds like you're getting too much of this. Let's cut back. I mean, there's many times in my career working with women where I've said, let's cut this out for 30 days. Let's just stop all hormones and see if your body can go back into its own rhythm or balance. And then let's restart one at a time, maybe at a lower dose. I tend to prescribe a pretty low dose anyway. But often women, sometimes they don't do well on hormones at all, and that's okay too.
So, again, this is for everybody listening. It's a wild ride. It's like the wild, wild west. There is not one person that's going to most likely ever get it right on the first try. And it's not for the lack of knowledge, judgment. It's because everybody's bio-individual and it's because everybody's got different body chemistry and things going on in their body and their personal life and all of that. So just know if you decide and when you decide to dip your toe into that, you've got to brace yourself because it is going to be a lot of trial and error. And it is being with somebody that you feel like you can communicate well with and that really hears you and understands, because that's a huge part of it. And there is or at least in my experience, because I've been to a couple of different people and I've gotten on and off. And really, what really prompted me to go back to it and try it again was just the long-term cognitive bone. Like those are the things I'm most concerned about. Yeah, vanity stuff, but that's not really like for me. I just want to make sure if I can do something that's going to protect my bones a little bit better, my heart a little bit better, my brain a little bit better, I want to try that because those are my most important vital things to keep me having like longevity, good health for a longer period of time. So, and again,
And that's the bone health, the cardiovascular health, the brain health, and that's where that exercise, just to put a plug in for
yeah,
muscle strengthening. I mean, yes, whatever you love to do, dancing, swimming, walking, running, biking, hiking. I think the muscle strengthening, using weights, using your own body, that is a game changer. And
100%.
I love that there's so many women today on social media, the different platforms that are 50 and above that are getting into like muscle strengthening. And I used to hate the the videos on like somebody at the gym. I'm like, I don't want to see that, but I kind of love it now, especially with women who are late 40s, 50s and beyond, and they're getting into the barbell classes or even just like the kettlebell, or I love simple dumbbells. I've increased my weight over time, but I think that is a game changer, not only in how strong you feel, but it actually is a fat burner, and it does help support mood and sleep, and it supports your bone health too.
Mhm.
And as we know, women are more prone to osteopenia, osteoporosis, and the muscle strengthening, of course, with the diet, the healthy, nourishing foods, and the stress management, that is really going to help you for the last, the second half of your life. And
Yeah, I agree with that. I think strength training, I don't even I call it functional movement because I'm not a gym person. I never was. And, years ago when I got into CrossFit a little bit, I'm sure it was my friends were doing it, but it was also more of a vanity thing, and now, I mean, I just want to be able to get up and down. I want to be able to lift things. I want to feel good. But since I have been weight training over the last 6 months, like more consistently, not just, I've definitely noticed a difference in just a lot of my day-to-day things and my moods and my energy level and things like that. But prior to that, there was an exhaustion level that was different. So I'm sure they all go together and I'm still battling, if HRT is for me or not. I'm still in those like switching everything around every 10 seconds, I feel like trying to figure it out. But somewhere along the way, and I'm also doing a detox. So I think it's just a combination of all of that. But what I will say, this is where I want to dive into this, is that over the last 5 years, I've just done a lot of self-care. Like I've just flipped my mind because I saw, like you said, I saw a very stressful situation take me out, and it took me 2 years to come back from it. And I promised myself I would never do that again because that was dumb. But I didn't know until it kind of all happened. You think you're handling things, but you're really not. You're handling it, and then your body's going to break down at some point. So I think that really put me on a trajectory before all of this HRT stuff, just to really have that mind, body, spirit connection. And so let's dive a little bit, because this is actually what I would consider the golden nuggets of menopause. It's the wisdom. You can no longer be who you were before because you've had so much life experience, so much wisdom. If you're a mom, you've raised human beings, and most of them are now kind of taking that next step to whether it's just college or after college. And so, I mean, I don't know why, but it's like we just come into this storm of all these different changes all at one time. So having, those underlying self-care practices, and that inner, we call it primary foods. So I really want to dive a little bit into that because I find it, and one of the things that you said was like closure, death, and rebirth, but I just find it like it is an awakening. It's an awakening, but it's actually for me a homecoming back to the body that I was disconnected from really for a lot of years, just because I was in that go, 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 and just survival mode of momming and kidding and parenting and, and taking care of my parents and all of that stuff. So I would love to hear your wisdom on just that whole mind body connection, spiritual piece.
Yeah, I love this too. So I think a lot of women are taken by surprise at a lot that happens, not just, oh, my hormones are changing and I'm gaining weight and I'm trying to juggle life and my work or my children, my marriage, and all the things that that are involved in my life. And I'm going through these hormone changes. And with the hormone changes, it often makes women a lot more emotionally fragile. Not to say that, and I know that I don't want that to come across as a demeaning word, but it just makes women more sensitive. So sometimes women are not able to cope with the life changes because of these hormones that drop. And when we're younger, we're a lot more resilient for a million reasons, but I think the abundance of hormones allows us to just kind of roll with the punches a little bit easier. You throw in hormone changes, hormone drops, aging parents, job, career changes, marriages or relationships that are changing, maybe moving. Obviously, we saw a lot of that 5 years ago with the pandemic, a lot of people wanting to pivot and wanting to really pursue different paths in life, and that's okay. It was kind of a wake-up call. I think perimenopause and menopause can be that wake-up call for a lot of women, in how you've lived your life, how you've eaten, like how you've moved your body, how you've treated yourself, the quality of your relationships. One of the things I talked about in this, common, uncommon symptoms of perimenopause and menopause is like, this is really that time to really get connected to your body, but also to your soul and get connected to how are you talking to yourself? How are you treating yourself? How are you treating other people? And it really becomes this, I say, coming home to yourself or returning to yourself. It's really about like what feels true to you, and that's
Mhm.
going to be personalized from woman to woman. And maybe it's remembering what you used to love to do. Maybe it's completely stepping into a different version of yourself as your body is going through these changes, as you are maybe shifting what you're eating, how you're moving your body, maybe slowing down. I mean, we're in a society right now that I'm really worried. I mean, thank God we have AI to help support us and nudge us, but that's coming at a cost. I think we'll see later. I think this go, go, go mentality that a lot of women have in caring for other people, it seems like that doesn't really end, especially in today's society with always having to be online, always having to be close to our devices, always having to post the latest, do the latest. And it's just sometimes it can be very overwhelming. And I think that's why this word anxiety is thrown around so much because there's so many different distractions, and that in itself makes perimenopausal or perimenopause and menopausal women, we are masters at multitasking, but then you throw all these other things into our lives. And with the hormone changes, it makes it almost impossible to roll with those punches, so to speak. And so
It's funny that you say that because I was thinking a couple months ago, like back to my grandmother's, and they did work a little bit here and there, but for the most part, by the time I was of an age where I could remember things, they really didn't. They stayed home with the kids, and then they, I don't know, after retirement, they did their But I feel like they lived in a much slower paced world. And I'm not saying they didn't go through crazies during the menopause and all of that stuff. But I do feel very strongly that this fast paced, we have to world is really coming down in a way during this time that is there to show you that no, you don't. You do not have to follow the norm. It's like if everybody jumped off the bridge, you're going to jump off the bridge. It's like what's aligned with you and where do you feel at peace? And like you're saying, the Instagram, the this, the that, you really have to create boundaries, like personal boundaries where you're gonna shut it down. You're going to, and and I have an older, younger daughter. She's figuring that out at a much earlier age, because these phones are like an appendage for all these kids. They don't know life without it. They can't
and
remember it.
adults too.
Adults too, for sure. But like I can remember like the freedom not having it, and they don't know what that's like. And so my younger one who's home, she's been really putting boundaries around her time, and it's helping her a lot, in just a bunch of different areas, not, just one particular. But I just think we keep saying, well, this is just life. No, you create the life, right? You create what the situation is. And I think during this like perimenopause, menopausal time, it is that awakening for you to say, you know what, this doesn't align with me anymore. This doesn't feel right. And then what are you going to do about it though? Like you have to take that action step to change and be able to slow down. And I think we've again grown up in this society where it's like you got to work to have more, to have. Where are you in all that? Is it working for you? How do you feel? And I just think that's a conversation that doesn't happen a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. And I do think just as you can be disciplined when it comes to what you're eating, your exercise, financial responsibility, you can be disciplined. And I will admit I have a hard time with this because especially when I'm on a roll and I love to write and I love to create content and sometimes I thrive on it, but I also am aware of like, Chrissy, this is too much screen, like your phone tells you this is how much screen time you
Look,
have. Yeah. And so being able to shut it down, that takes discipline, that takes courage, that takes that personal boundary with yourself, really, to know I need to slow down, I need to regulate and nourish my nervous system. I am a big believer in meditation. I have been practicing just about almost every day for the last 4 years, 5 years. And I will tell you that's another game changer for me because I am somebody that's like maybe a lot of people in our society, go, 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 and just like always having to do all the things and always be busy. And having that practice has really changed my health. It's changed the way I approach life. And as you just said a few moments ago, like that inner reality, that inner world creates your outer world. And so if you don't like the outer world, you got to shift what's happening on the inside. And that takes accountability, and that takes a bit of being humble at like, okay, there's something that needs to shift within me and my world and my thoughts so that I can create the life, or at least get closer to the life that I want to create for myself. And having that either meditation or quiet time, music, prayer, being out in nature, whatever it is for you, being able to detach from our devices, which is so hard to do, is key, especially for perimenopause and menopausal women, because it's easy to get out of sync with yourself, with your nervous system, with your hormones, and feel like you just want to scream. That coming back to yourself, coming back to that mind body connection, that mindfulness piece, and that mindfulness practice, I think is it's life changing, but it's also life
Mhm.
saving for a lot of women too. And adding that component in as much as you can, again, that's going to help you for the rest, the last several decades of your life, or the second half of your life.
Second half,
Yeah.
second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Second.
I agree with that 100%. And I think when I was talking about like self-care practices, that was the one thing 4 or 5 years ago. It's probably been 5 years at this point, but that every morning I just dedicated time to do that. And that is where a lot of the shifting does take place. Now, a lot of people say, I can't do that. I can't sit quiet. It's really not about sitting completely still and quiet. It is about hearing your own self. It's about hearing what is happening in that brain of yours. What are the thoughts that you're having? How do they serve you? And if you actually sit for 5 minutes and just, if you're not a meditator yet, or that's not your thing or whatever, just having that time where you are unattached from everything, your mind is going to go wild because it's going to be like, wow, I've never had silence before. So here I go. And I'm going to start like throwing, and it's okay. You're not supposed to be completely unattached to yourself, right? You're gonna, our brains are meant to do that. So it is hearing though. What are you hearing from your brain? And then how is that serving you? And how do you shift that? And what can you listen to, read, do, or not do that's going to help undo some of the things that will pop up in that quiet time? Because
Yeah,
there's going
it's
to be some things that are uncomfortable.
of course, and it's deepening the connection if you can actually believe that. And they call it a practice for a reason. You don't just, try learning a new language or a musical instrument or eat one salad and go to one gym class and then you're fine. Like it's a practice, right? Like you do it. And I remember going to my first Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat in 2021. I'd been studying his work for a little bit of time, but I finally went to the 7-day retreat, and it was a deep dive into meditation multiple times a day for six days and then one night. And I remember feeling frustrated. The room was too cold. People were breathing weird. And it was just, I was uncomfortable and I was frustrated and I didn't think I was doing it right. And I had a hard time those first few days. I kind of wanted to leave, or at least I wanted to leave the ballroom and maybe go out by the pool or something. But I persisted and I stayed. And he dives really deep into the science and the neuroscience and the research behind meditation, why it works, why it's effective, how it can not just, it's not about calming your mind or slowing down your thoughts. It's about changing your life. It's really about tuning into that voice that says, do this, call this person, start this business, maybe end this relationship, or yes, stop having the alcohol every night. Like it's the little voice that comes through beneath the chatter, when you can lower the volume on the chatter through music. I love guided meditation. I
Me
love
too.
music. That's how I do it. I rarely is it just quiet. Sometimes it'll just be music, and I love that too. Really calming music, especially if I don't feel like hearing somebody's voice in my ear. But I really think that this is that opportunity to deepen the relationship with yourself, to get the clarity on what it is I actually want for my life and what I want to create. And so it gets better. That's not to say it's always perfect every time. Absolutely not. And I struggle still some days where I'm like, oh my God, I have too much to do. I don't have time to do this. But every time I sit down, whether it's 10 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour, I always feel better. It always helps me. It gives me better direction. on what the next step is. Or maybe the next step is just to slow down. I mean, I keep hearing that voice, slow down, Christy, slow down, and maybe that's the voice that you need to hear. And only you know what the next step is if you have that kind of practice. But it does get easier. And fortunately, today we have lots of meditation apps. I love Insight Timer. I'm a big fan of Insight Timer. I love all the different teachers and all the different types of meditations and talks and courses and music. It's a beautiful platform in this crazy chaotic world. Or something like a Dr. Joe Dispenza, whatever resonates with you. And that's kind of going back to your word alignment, like whatever aligns with you for that day, for that time in your life. If that's what gives you a greater sense of peace and purpose, then go
Yeah.
for it.
And again, I want to say, it's not a one size fits all. So if you try one type and you're like, well, that's not for me, just know there is a bunch of other things. Like for me, my like portal in, I guess, was visual meditation because I could visualize what was happening and it just made me feel like I could shut that noise down because I was thinking about what was being said, so it allowed me to have, but that was sort of my step in. But like the Joe Dispenza at the beginning, when I was very first starting, that was like way over my head. And I was like, I cannot relate to this yet. And I just kept going and doing what was resonating, right? And then it just allowed me, honestly, for me, it allowed me to really deepen my relationship with God. And it gave me that quiet time to be more present, to be able to hear the things from Him, or if you're a universe person, whatever it is, but it gives you that time to receive the downloads.
Mhm.
And as I kind of have gone through, Joe Dispenza's make a little more sense to me now, right? And now I'm able to handle a little bit. So don't just pick one thing and if it doesn't work, say it's not for you. Just really give it time and persistence. You have to be persistent about whatever it is that you're wanting to change. But like I always talk about those 1% shifts, it's like you don't have to do it for an hour. You just do it for 5 minutes, and just start somewhere because when you do, like you said, when you do get that, when I go back there, I always feel better. You're more, even when you don't want to, and when you get there, it's going to be a good thing. And that's kind of how my purple yoga mat is for me. Whether I'm meditating on it, sitting on it, quiet time, stretching, or doing yoga, it's like my body knows it can decompress when it sits down on it. It's I don't know. It's just a thing I've had with my yoga mat. So can't ever get rid of it.
Yeah. And your hat says 1%, which is
It
great.
does.
And I love that. And I think those little incremental changes are powerful. It doesn't have to be a massive shift. I mean, very rarely do people like just go all 100% in.
Right.
It's pretty uncommon. The little shifts that you do every day, they do matter. They do add up, like anything, whether it's building a business or strengthening your body or practicing meditation. It really does. It has that compounding effect,
Yeah, for
I
sure.
love, which
One of the things you said here, that I really feel a lot of these things that you had listed, um, during this menopausal phase for me. And one of them that, is the intolerance of BS, superficial things that just really don't align anymore, and it's interesting how I'm a pretty easygoing person, but it's interesting how my I'm just changing, evolving, I guess. I just don't really have time for that because I have so many other things going on in my life that need my attention, including caring for my mom, and that comes first. And so I guess that's really like helped me to see like this really isn't serving anymore. Maybe it did at one time when I had more. I don't think it really ever did. It probably just thought it did. But you just start to prioritize a little bit differently, not just because my mom, but again, you have your kids that, start to disperse and retirement coming up. And there's just a lot of balls in the air kind of a thing. But you just have, or at least for me, I just have less, um, I guess tolerance is the right
bandwidth,
word, but
bandwidth, yeah.
bandwidth. Thank you. I like that better. Bandwidth for stuff that just isn't going to lift me up, serve me in a way that's going to bring me to the next level of where I want to go. So,
Yeah, and this has come up a lot for me lately. I think when we're younger, we always want to belong, and but when we're younger, we want to be invited. We want to go to this party, this event, this school, this like we want to be part of like we want to be friends with everybody, it seems like. And when we get older, it's like as we're changing and evolving and getting closer to that, authenticity of who you really are. And again, that takes time sometimes it takes a lifetime to really even discover that, is you do become more discerning with who you want to spend time with. And not just the one-on-one relationships or friendships, but also just like the professional networks. I went, 100% into going to these professional networking groups in person, online, mastermind groups, and going to local networking groups. And I kind of overdid it a bit, which is okay. I mean, I needed to go and immerse myself in my local community and join this online group. And it actually was a bit overwhelming. I learned a lot and I grew in so many ways, but it got to be so overwhelming that it just like I couldn't even hear what I wanted anymore because there was so much
Hmm.
busyness outside of me. And I started to resent going to some of these groups, and I started to resent, another Zoom meeting. And it was so much for me that I finally just had to kind of pull back and slow down so I could really integrate what I had learned and really become a bit more conscious of the people I wanted to spend time with and who do I feel, what kind of people light me up where I feel happy, I feel good about myself, I feel inspired, I feel uplifted and empowered, and I actually feel, I love the term rising tide lifts all ships or boats. Like I feel like that energy of people, and it's individualized for each person. The people that you spend time with, that's crucial, especially as you're going through your own life crap and circumstances and setbacks and obstacles. I mean, especially like with you caring for your mother, and you have your children that are moving on to the next phase of their life, and whatever else we have going on in our life. I think it's important to surround yourself with people that are really high quality, high caliber. And it's that energetic match, that vibrational match of surrounding yourself with people where you feel really good and stepping away or disconnecting from the people who are trying to pull you down or bring you down or sabotage you in some way. And um, knowing when to walk away. And that
Hmm.
could be colleagues, that could be a business, that could be friendships, that could be relationships. It's surrounding yourself in maybe a smaller circle so that you can be
Yeah.
the best version of yourself. And that takes a lot of courage as well.
Yeah,
And
it does. And it's an interesting time, again, for people that have kids that are going to that next phase of life and then the empty nesting, if you want to call it. But it's, for a long time, you surrounded yourself with the kids, the parents of the kids who your kids were hanging out with, kind of a thing. And that became your like tribe just because you're, especially if you're in a sport or you're in something, you're always, and so you have commonality. But once you end that phase, right? It's like either they're still in the phase or they end the phase, but then they're doing something. And I think that's around the time a lot of people start going through this time of their life again of peri and post and all of that, where like you said, it's like the rising, you got to just figure out who to surround yourself with so that not everybody does, but for me, it is that important that I need to spend quality time with people. And I don't need a lot of people. I was a very, uh, I've been lived in the same area for a very long time. So I even have friends from elementary school, I don't see them all the time, but it's just one of those things, you got to just find your new tribe, a tribe that
that
gets it.
evolves. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that evolves as you
Yep.
evolve, right?
Exactly.
It's supposed to. And again, my sister, she's married to the same man. They're high school sweethearts. They've been married, I don't know, I don't know, I lost
A
count.
lot of years.
40, 50 years. It's just, and it's amazing. And not everybody has that marriage or has that longevity or that type of connection. And they work for a family business. It's a beautiful story. It's not perfect by any stretch. Nobody's life is, but they have a very similar circle and a similar life and a similar path. And not many people have that. I would say that that's less common. Um, and my life is definitely very different than that. And so And I love change. I'm somebody that like I love that constant evolution and evolving, and that doesn't mean that I embrace change. Change is
Well, of
so
course.
uncomfortable and it is scary and it is unknown. And one of the meditations I love on Insight Timer, I think it's something about abundance in the face of fear, or something about fear and abundance. It's basically stepping into that unknown, and your happiness lies in the unknown. You're the other side of letting go, your joy,
Mhm.
your transformation, your the new life you want to create is on the other. It's stepping into that unknown. It's stepping
Yeah.
into that place of uncertainty. And a lot of us don't want to take that leap. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's a lot of us because we want to know what's going to happen. And so a lot of times that, but again, if you can have that quiet time, that meditation, that voice that says, make this move, make this next step, I think that's your inner compass, God, source, universe telling you, hey, make this next move. And it's your joy is on the other side of that. And it's trust, right? It's
It's faith
trust,
and trust for
faith,
sure.
and yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, it's an unlayering process. We always talk about health and wellness as being like an onion, and you peel back things and things come out. And it's almost like in this phase, you're getting to the core, right? Like you're coming down to that core, coming back to who you were really meant to be or who you've always been, maybe just at a different layer because you've had things layered on top of you. And so you're just sort of delayering and de-shedding all of these things and the shoulds and the this, and you're just living more authentically, really. So this is all to say that there's always challenges in life, right? And there's no exception for perimenopause or menopause, postmenopause, wherever you are on the journey. There's reasons why we go through all of this, and we don't really understand it while we're sitting in it. But like for the peri part, I'm now in post, and I do think that I know why I went through some of those things. And it was the beginning of the change, right? It was the beginning of trying to get through some of those challenges, but understanding. And now looking back, I think I can see some of that. I'm not post enough to be able to like see what it is all about, but I do really feel like it is that coming home. And I think again, this phase of life has beautiful nuggets to give of wisdom and life. And we need to focus on that rather than everything that is going nuts in your body and all of the challenges. And not to say you should ignore all of them, but find a good group, find a good practitioner, find a good group of people to walk that, but really start to shift and celebrate the wins, celebrate the nuggets that you're learning, I guess.
Yeah, what you're receiving, what you're stepping into, who you're becoming. Yeah, it's easy to think about the bad and what you're losing, but really what you're gaining.
Yeah.
Not only just the lifetime of wisdom, but the freedom in a lot of way.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a lot to look forward to. It's really focusing the gratitude of that, and
Yes.
that's key as well, is to remember what you're gaining, not what you're losing, and that's everything. But especially for postmenopausal women who are like, there's a lot of loss during this time in a lot of ways, and it's that appreciation for what has been and then what's to come
Yeah.
is
Yeah. It's exciting. The what's to come, I think you
yeah.
can make it exciting if you have a good mind body connection,
Mhm.
and listening to what your body says and hearing what your mind says, and not just disassociating from all of that, because it really does matter. And that's why I love, being an integrative, holistic integrative coach, because it's not just the food on your plate. It's not just the movement. All those extremely important. And that's my passion. It is all the things on the primary side, which are the things that feed your soul off your plate, which is joy, relationships, you know, environment, how your home is, your home cooking, like all of that matters. It's not just what we were taught, which is diet and exercise and kill yourself. It's not those things. It's like a very, very, very small component of being holistically healthy.
I think that's incredibly important to have that whole person view of your life, And no, it's not about just the physical body. That's important too. That's your temple, but it really is embracing and integrating that mind, body, spirit approach,
Yeah, for sure.
so that you have that greater sense of meaning in life. And that's, I actually wanted to add something a moment ago about this time in a woman's life. I love the power of sisterhood and community. And again, that could be a very small group. It could be something that is in person, it could be online, it could be a retreat that you take. I think that is what women are craving and what women are pursuing these days. And I think that having that validation and that confirmation of like, yeah, I went through that, or this is what I've gone through,
Hmm.
and this is what I've tried. And that is so nourishing to the soul for women. And if you have that opportunity, I'd start a group. I mean, a lot of women are like,
Yeah.
don't have anything like that. You can always start something like that. And that I think is really just that uplifting piece that helps women get through this
You
time
know, it's
better.
interesting you're talking about that because I do think we are craving that, but we're craving that because for so many years, especially you're either really working your career really hard and or having kids and doing that life. And not that you've forgotten about yourself, but you haven't really grown something for yourself. And so this is another like nugget of time that I find to be really awesome during like this postmenopausal phase of life or just empty nesting, all of it, the midlife, is that we have the time and we are craving something just for us, not because we're going to the soccer tournament or not just because we're going to do X, Y, and Z because our kids are doing it, but it's truly for us. And again, if you don't have kids and you're working really hard and you don't ever disconnect from that, it's the same thing. It's like we're looking for something of our own. And I do believe that that really is part of someone's transformation when they can find that. So
Yeah.
as we're ending, what are just a couple of non-negotiables that you've created recently that have become non-negotiables because it could be an old thing too, but just that you know that without these things, you're not going to show up as your best self and you're not going to have the best health and wellness.
It's the same answer I gave last time.
Okay. Love it.
And I love it because it integrates or it takes care of so many pieces of my life. It's the physical movement, it's the exercise, whether it's cardiovascular, aerobic class, muscle strengthening, weights, gym class. I love that because for me, not only does it help alleviate the stress and makes my body stronger, but it becomes this portal. I get a download of information literally within like seconds sometimes. And it's like, a problem I'm struggling with, or I can't resolve something, or I need greater insight, I need clarity, and I really get the information that comes flooding in when I move my body. So that's a non-negotiable. That's a non-negotiable. Recently, I started getting back into swimming. I live in Colorado now. I grew up in Northern California, and we had a pool growing up. Everybody in the neighborhood had a pool, and we were always swimming or boating or going to the ocean or lake. And I got away from that. And I love anything to do with water, rivers, lakes, ocean. And recently I started swimming in a local pool and just swimming a few laps. And I forgot how much I love the water.
I love that.
And I'm a water sign. My birthday's in July. It's coming up. And so I love anything to do with swimming. And so for me, it's so freeing. And if I happen to be on vacation and there's an ocean, I'm going to swim in the ocean too. So it's finding things that you love. Dancing. I don't do enough of that. That's another thing that's very liberating and allows me to just feel the sense of freedom and also clarity as well. I'd say the nutrition piece, that's incredibly important. For me, really, it's the physical movement and the meditation practice. Those two together, oh my God, I don't know what I would do without that. It really has transformed my life in a way that I would not have predicted.
And that is what non-negotiables are, right? They are those things that without you would be a different person. And when people are trying to figure out their non-negotiables, right? Because some people have never done that, you have to try on a lot of things. You got to build little habits and try them on. And when you let go of that habit, how does it make you feel? And when it is that when you go back to it and you're like, oh, I forgot how much I really needed that, then you know that has to
Totally.
become a non-negotiable. You know that has to be put into those daily routines if you want to show up as your best self. So I love those. I love that you shared that. I love that you shared something going back to something you used to do that brought you joy, that is reminding you that you can still find joy in things. And I tell people all the time, where do you find joy? And they don't know because they've just given up a lot of those fun things because when you're a kid, you're doing all these fun things. And then all of a sudden, someone told you along the way, when you're an adult, you don't do those things. And it's like so untrue. And it's just sad that we haven't really, as a society, kept that more at the forefront of that is how you keep well is by finding things that bring you joy and doing those repetitively. So I love that. Thank you for sharing those non-negotiables. I know this conversation was kind of a twofold, but I think it's an important topic. We could talk for weeks and weeks and weeks about all of this because I get so many questions and, Christy's really wise and she's got really good experience. And again, but I love how, we can now focus also on some of the good. It doesn't all have to be challenging, but, I always say you have to go through the challenges to see the beauty on the other side. It's like climbing the mountain. It's treacherous. It's all the things. But when you get to the top, man, and you see that view, all of that's worth it. And I think that's similar to this experience for me, at least. Um,
Yeah,
so
the butterfly coming out of the chrysalis. Yeah.
chrysalis, yeah, for sure.
Oh, I love
Yeah, for sure. All right. So all Christy stuff, of course, will be in the show notes. If you've listened to this and it really resonated with you in any way, shape, or form, and you know somebody that it might help, especially going through this time of their life, please share the episode because together, the more that we can share this, the more women that we can help lift up. And that's the whole purpose and premises of this show is to stay connected, to educate, to uplift, and to create a better community because we are the only ones we can really rely on. So thank you so much for tuning in again, and I will see y'all next week. Thanks, Christy.
Thank you. Thanks, Robin.
That episode had so many great takeaways. I hope you feel inspired and more empowered to make small 1% shifts on your wellness journey this week. I'd love to hear what resonated with you. If you want to leave a review, share your thoughts, and let me know how you're going to be implementing these 1% shifts into your life. And don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with another mama who could use a little wellness love. Want to stay connected? Join me on Instagram and Facebook at Live Life Balanced with Robin. Check out my website at livelifebalancedwithrobin.com for more resources and grab yourself some freebies while you're there. Until next time, I hope you find peace, love, and light by breathing, being present, and allowing for all possibilities to come your way. See y'all next week. Love to y'all.